Nope. Okay, now you should be able to hear me.
All good. How you doing, buddy?
Good, good. How are you?
I'll tell you what. Enjoying this. I got my alma mater, the LSU Tigers, play tonight, so I'm a little nervous about how that's going to play out. I usually, with Saturday games, you kind of get it out of the way and you kind of get ready for the Cowboys and all. But we've got a whole nother week for Cowboy football. But yeah, I'm sitting here already thinking about how my LSU Tigers are going to play tonight against USC. But always great to be with you. Good to see that smiling face of yours. I know you're going to ready to talk about some football, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good to see you as well. I was actually going to ask you, what do you think of the Tigers like going into this season? I don't
Uh,
know anything about
yeah.
them except that they're ranked number 13.
Yeah, that's about all you need to know right now. Trying to replace a Heisman Trophy winner is a very difficult thing, and we'll see if they in fact can do that. LSU traditionally
Facts.
outstanding skill players. Offensive line is one of the better ones in the country. They were really young at one time, and this is what happens. You get 2 years removed, and now they become one of the better groups, veteran groups in the country. So that's the hopeful part. With as LSU fans all know, the defense has been since really the national championship season of 2019 has been a little bit of the suspect group. They don't particularly stop anybody. They don't particularly tackle well. At least the last 2 years of that. New defensive coordinator on staff this year. We'll see how it all plays out. They've got some talented players that every year it seems like when you and I work on the NFL draft, we're talking about LSU defensive players, but then they don't play worth a damn during the season. So it is the biggest. It's fitting that they're playing Southern Cal USC in Las Vegas because tonight I think is a crapshoot for both teams. I don't think the
I was
US
going to say that.
either the
There are questions
USC
about
yeah
LSU's defense and
yeah
about USC's offense. So,
yeah well they're trying to replace the first overall pick in the draft.
yeah.
If this game was played last year, it would be the first overall pick versus the second overall pick in the draft, and so that's where really both teams are right now, and it's just so fitting. LSU traditionally, the last 2 years, they've played Florida State in these opening season games, and Florida State has taken it to them, pretty good. So you just never know. You just never. I mean, I was watching, Michigan struggle with with Fresno State yesterday, and Oregon was kind of messing around with Idaho, and you just the first couple of games of the year, you just don't know how this thing's gonna shake out. But and that's what we can say too about the NFL season. You kind of feel like you have an idea what might happen in these games, but you don't know what injuries that teams are dealing with coming out of training camps. And the Browns seem to be a team that's kind of banged up right now. They're trying to figure out their quarterback situation as far as health. So a lot of these teams, we Bill Parcells always used to tell me that he would say, man, you really, really know your team. You know who you are. You know if you're a playoff team or not by the time you get to Thanksgiving. If you get to Thanksgiving and you're not, you don't look like you're having success, you're getting any consistency with your team, then you're pretty much, you are who you are. And but that's with the Cowboys right now. We're trying to all figure out. And here I'm transitioning from LSU to the Cowboys, but I think we're all trying to kind of figure out what the Cowboys are right now. We trying to figure out, was it the right move with all these veteran defensive tackles? Do they have enough depth on the edge? How are they going to replace Bland at corner? Is there anybody that's going to step up to be the third receivers? How good is Ferguson going to be? Hey, whoa, we got a new left tackle, a rookie center. Where are we right now? There's just so many things, these checklists that you go through, and you're just like, if these things all, and probably not all the questions will be answered in week one, but those are all questions that probably do need to be answered if the Cowboys are going to have success this year.
Oh, I agree. And those are precisely some of the questions that I wanted to ask you. But one of the reasons why I love doing my shout outs and call outs with you on
Yeah.
the show, because I have some guests that I'm like, okay, I'll do it and then I'll bring you on. But the fact that you can go from talking college football to talking the
Hmm.
NFL, like I feel like if I don't take the opportunity to talk to you about these things, it's
Hmm.
like it's a wasted opportunity. You've had so
Yeah.
much experience in the NFL, being a scout, being an exec, and things like that. So today I only have two items in my shout outs and call outs. I have one shout out that's about a college player, and I have one call out that's
Mm.
about one of our divisional opponents. So I'm going to start with the shout out. I should have done this whenever I went live before, but Travis Hunter, have
Oh,
you been
wow.
paying attention to this kid?
Yeah. If you watch, it's hard not to pay attention to Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
I think Colorado's done a really good job the last couple of years of, Deion Sanders. Say what you want about Deion Sanders, one of the greatest ever to put on pads. The coaching at Jackson State, incredible. He gets the Colorado job. He makes Colorado a relative, or puts him into relevance. Colorado at one time was a really good program. When Cordell Stewart and others were, they had, Rashid Salam. They've had a history of some outstanding football players at Colorado, and Coach Prime trying to bring them back to that mark. But he's gone out and he has a really good understanding of skill guys. And when you look at
Yes.
Travis Hunter, and the debate is going to be, I've already seen people talking about, can he be a two-way player in the NFL? The kid, one of the most impressive feats, and this happened last year, he opens the season at TCU, and it's like a 90-plus degree day, and my man is playing like 200 snaps in a game that was
Right.
going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you get in a track meet game, you were going to play a lot of snaps, and he did. And he really did it the whole season. I think he got nicked up a little bit, had an injury that he was dealing with, his shoulder, his neck, or something he was dealing with.
He did. He took a
Yeah,
hard hit in the middle
yeah,
of the season, and that kind of slowed him down a little bit.
right.
But for anyone who's not familiar, I want to call out some of his numbers from
Yeah,
yesterday. So yesterday he played 129 snaps.
yeah.
On the defensive side, he did 72 total snaps, and he was at corner, safety, and linebacker. And then on the offensive side, he had 57 snaps at receiver, where he got 7 catches for 132 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That is bananas. So if you were to put your scout hat back on,
Mhm.
like, how would you pitch this to a team? Would you try to pitch him as a two-way player, or would you try to tell him like, yo, you got to pick? And like, how would you handle that conversation?
I think it's a very good question, and it's one that you could, when you're selling the player, and he will have this opportunity, and he plays for one of the greatest two-way players ever. When you start to talk about multiple sports with baseball and football, with Deion Sanders, and what he did as a receiver with the Cowboys at times, he was they throw him the ball, set up plays. He was a dynamic punt returner. There were so many things that Deion Sanders did, and he was one of the best corners to ever play the game. So he understands how difficult that could really be, and he's able to, when scouts go in there or general managers go into Colorado and make the trip to Boulder and they start to break this kid down, Deion could explain to them, listen, I would play him if the first question I would ask, I would say, Coach Prime, what do you think his best position is? And I would make the Hall of Famer tell me, and he would say, Brian, Brian, don't do that. He's the, but I would say, Coach, I really need to know. I trust you. I like your evaluation. What do you think his best position is? Because I think I have an idea myself going in. Now, usually scouts go into a room. When they ask coaches questions, they already kind of know the answer that they're going to get, but they have to ask the question. So I would ask Coach Prime, like, what position? And if he told me cornerback, I would file that away. I'd say, okay. If he told me wide receiver, I would agree with him. I think his best position is wide receiver.
I think so too.
But that doesn't keep me from drafting him and then maybe thinking about certain packages in the final 2 minutes of games. I'm not talking about play deep safety and knock the ball down. I'm talking about putting an extra dime defensive back on the field, or putting an extra nickel defensive back on the field that I know can cover. Like, for example, if somebody comes and attacks me in 11 personnel, the 3 wide receivers, and maybe at the end of the game I'm struggling. I haven't really played well against their slot or one of their outside guys. This is where you put this kid on the field, and now we're trying to get out of the game. He's going to cover somebody, and he's going to make the difference there. I personally think the kid's an outstanding wide receiver. The ability to run routes, the ability to adjust, to contort his body, the balance, the control,
the catches that he makes,
the hands. He's got such a feel. He's got such a feel for how to extend for the ball, and he tracks it. He finds it. He's good after catch. I think that I could do more with him as a wide receiver to affect games than I can play him in the secondary. But that doesn't keep me from my defensive coordinator saying, listen, if we get in a bind and we need to get off this field, I think this kid can go cover whoever you want to put him on.
Absolutely.
But I'd love to see Deion Sanders tell me what he thinks his best position is, and maybe we'll hear that when we get to into February, March, when the draft cycle starts to really kind of heat up there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put a pin in this part of our conversation and see how it holds up over the course of the season. But I really like that idea of referencing the feedback of people who are working with him on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So with that being said, before I go into my call out, which I don't know if you've heard about either, Voch Lombardi's in the chat. What's up? Co-host of the You Doing All Right podcast. He just says, up?
My man can't take a day off, He's always, he always has to make sure that I'm so excited to work with, everybody, all my group here. And my man just can't take a day off. He can't just put his feet up and enjoy life. He has to he's always working on something. So, hey, boss, it's glad to have you here today with us.
Always. So the call up that I have, like I said, is about a divisional opponent. And I don't know if you've heard of this quote from Jalen Hurts, but it was one of the things to me that kind of draws a dividing line, in my opinion, between him and Dak Prescott, as much as people try to compare and contrast the two. And I know that you and I have not always seen eye to eye on like the value of Dak Prescott and, what he should be for the Dallas Cowboys. But I want to get your opinion on this. Have you heard about this quote where Jalen Hurts was basically saying that, in a nutshell, it sounds to me like he was admitting that he doesn't know how to read blitzes. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah, that Jalen doesn't know how to read blitzes? Is that, or
let me play the soundbite real quick,
please,
so we can both hear the same thing. Yeah, and so anybody who's in the chat who hasn't heard this, we're all on the same page about what he said. So I'll bring this up real quick. And maybe you as a former scout, you'll interpret this statement a little bit differently.
All right.
Definitely. More nitty gritty stuff from me, Jalen. The pass protection difference between this year and last year. Now you're working with a new center. How has it been working with Cam Jurgens as your center? And how do you like the new pass protection scheme?
I don't know if it's necessarily new. I don't know if that's the word, but I think there's a different approach in some areas and some facets. I think Cam has really done a really good job just taking that role on and really taking on the responsibilities of what comes with leading that group. I think in the end, when you look at this upcoming season and what you may have seen from years past, is just different autonomy in different places. We had a great player here, Jason Kelsey, who took on a lot of responsibility, and as a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn and all of that over the years, kind of was halted because of who we had. but now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey for this team.
Jalen, we're excited for it too. And again, we're talking.
Wow. Pretty interesting stuff. Yeah. You got me okay? Can you hear me fine there?
I can hear you. I was the one.
Okay, I did. I'm sorry. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, a couple different things here. When you do have a veteran center, they do take on a lot of responsibility. One of the great things that Dak Prescott benefited from in 2016, his rookie year, and I know that Jalen Hurts isn't a rookie, but one of the great things he benefited from, Dak, was that you had Travis Frederick. And when you have a center that can confidently call out blitzes and call out who's, it all really starts. The quarterback sets the protection with, he identifies who the middle linebacker is. So sometimes you'll hear Dak on the mic will say, or a quarterback will say, Mike is 52, and he's pointing to who they're identifying as the middle linebacker. Now they set the protection off that middle linebacker. It affects not only the offensive linemen, but also affects the running backs as well. So sometimes you'll see Zeke will stand next to Dak, and when he identifies, then you'll see Zeke look inside, outside, knowing that, okay, his first thing is if he's got to take first blitzer or outside blitzer. So everybody's sets off that. So, with Kellen Moore, we've lived this before because we've seen it with how he operates, or he operated with Dak and this offensive line when he was here as a coordinator. But the center does have a lot of responsibility, and his ability to tell everybody how if they're going to slide a direction and back's going to pick up outside guy, or they're going to slide a direction and quarterback is responsible for in-man on the line of scrimmage. So that's what goes on up front. You'll see Zach Martin. He'll kick a message all the way to Steele, and then that way Steele knows he's going to have help on the outside with either a back, or they're going to slide this thing all the way to the edge. So it's the center plays such a huge role, and when you're a young quarterback. Then you kind of get the handle. We've all watched enough football in our lives to see the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Bradys, these veteran quarterbacks that are Tony Romo, able to set the protection because they're thinking, okay, I want to throw the ball here, but to get the ball here, I got to make sure that I get the line and the backs all in the proper spot, and then I can handle the free blitzer. So it's different. And, when you have a veteran center, and Cam Jurgens was a center at Nebraska. He played guard for the Eagles for a couple years, and now he's back to playing center. So it's going to be different. We could even talk about what's going to happen with BB. BB's fortunate that he has two veterans on each side of him. He's got a veteran quarterback. He's got a veteran back that is probably not going to bust. So, they're pretty, and I asked Cooper this question one time. I'm like, when we interviewed him on 105.3 The Fan, I say, when you make a call, how confident are you? And he goes, there's times where I just have to just say it. I have to just make the call, right or wrong. And if it's right, great. If it's wrong, somebody usually will tell me I'm wrong. Somebody will, but that's part of the experience of blitz pickup and protection. But man, if you have a veteran center, it makes that life so much easier for those quarterbacks, because all they do is they identify. Then all of a sudden you hear those guys in front of you start talking, and now it's picked up, and Zeke's where he needs to be, and you can get that ball out of there. But for Hurts' situation, it's a lot different now because of Kelsey being gone. He does have veteran offensive linemen around him, but now he's going to have to probably do a little bit more to help with some of the identification of who is where, and then that helps that helps their line with the calls. So I'm sorry, that was a long explanation, but that's how it works.
It was a great explanation. I guess him using the phrase, my eagerness to learn was halted, was just kind of like sent alarm bells ringing a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean your eagerness to learn was halted? That doesn't sound good at all. But
he's a weird cat. He's a weird cat, and he always seems like he's just. You watch him on the sidelines, and the game could be doing well, and he looks so just tired and depressed, and there's. He's like he's staring into the crowd, just kind of, and maybe that's just how he gets into his. Maybe that's how he gets into the routine of playing and all. A lot of pressure on him though, because of some of the good starts they've had. Now he took them to a Super Bowl, a couple years ago, and good for him. That's a good team. But a lot of pressure on him with the start that they had last year, and a lot of people focusing on Nick Sirianni and the job. They really can't have a bad year. If it's a bad year, Howie Roseman, the general manager for the Eagles, was interested in he was kind of looking at things. Jeff Lurie, the owner for the Eagles, I used to work for Mr. Lurie. He's a wonderful human being, but his patience sometimes is not great. And Nick Sirianni, even though they went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago, there was some talk about maybe they needed to make a change. And, the fact they got rid of both their coordinators, and Nick Sirianni was kind of having some discussions with Hurts about his situation, and Hurts is like, listen, this is who I am. Don't try and, So anyway, it's a very, very important year. It's a very important year for a lot of teams. Like you say, it's an important year for the guys at the Giants. Their coach could get let go. Very important year for the Cowboys. The Cowboys, might not have your quarterback. You might not have your head coach. It might be a completely different team when you and I are talking about this next year. But there is a lot of pressure on teams in the NFC East this year.
This is another one, another part of our conversation I'm definitely going to have to put in a capsule and come back later this season because it's definitely going to be relevant. Yeah. But I want to rewind to what you were saying about Cooper Beebe and the offensive line with the Cowboys. Yeah. And you explaining that definitely helps me understand why there seemed to be a little bit of hesitancy as far as naming Cooper Beebe as the starter when everybody was like, oh, he's wonderful. He's great. He's so tough. Like, why would we want anybody else? That experience definitely makes sense. But I think one of the matchups when it comes to the Cowboys versus the Browns that I've heard talked about the most is Myles Garrett versus Tyler Guyton. Yeah. So we got Myles Garrett, who is the reigning defensive player of the year. And we've got rookie Tyler Guyton, who a lot of people are excited about for good reason. But admittedly, he does have a few things to work on. Sure. So are you one of the people in the camp of, Myles Garrett is too much for him right now? He has too much work to do. Are you one of the people in the camp of Tyler Guyton is a hard worker. He's catching on. He's taking feedback. He's going to show up and do his job and make a name for himself on Sunday.
It's nothing like jumping right into the fire right off. Right. Very similar to when I remember when Terrence Steele got his start against the Chargers, and it was Joey Bosa, and listen, you can name any really great pass rushers. It doesn't matter. These guys all are really good at rushing the passer, but you also have to have an understanding of, okay, we have to have a plan. We all went through the Chaz Green Atlanta game. Dallas didn't have a plan for that. They didn't have a plan for how to handle the rush that Atlanta and Chaz Green wasn't. Chaz Green had the San Francisco game. I think he played well, but then that Atlanta game was just a disaster. And Jason Garrett admitted to us in a walk-off one day. He says we didn't have a good plan for that. We didn't adjust well enough for that, and it cost us a game. And it cost us, our quarterback took some hits. When you go to the Terrence Steele game, they had a really good plan of how to handle Bosa. They chipped him, they spaced him, and when I mean space him is you can put a tight end to his side and you can make him have to play wider. So by spacing him, you're removing him from the quarterback. You're giving the quarterback maybe a little bit extra time to get the ball and get it out. Whereas if there's no spacing, he's right there off the edge. So you could space him, you could chip him, you could also single block him. And what happened in the game is that Terrence Steele started holding up pretty good. He's like, okay, we don't have to double this time. Okay, we don't have to space. Okay, let's kind of call this play. Okay, we'll chip him this next time just to keep him honest. But Dallas did a really good job of keeping Bosa off balance, and I think you have to do the same thing with Garrett. I don't think you could sit there and just say one-on-one the whole day. And I don't think the Cowboys are that way. I think he's going to get chipped. I think he's going to get spaced. The thing that Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator, will do, and I've known Jim forever. I mean, when he started in the league the same time I did in the early 90s with Cleveland. And Jim is going to move Garrett around knowing that Dallas is going to game plan for him. So you could see now you got a rookie center. You could put him in the A gap. You can rush him through the A gap. You could find ways to move him from side to side. You know what? This is going to sound really crazy, Jazz, but they might believe that Myles Garrett's power and quickness might be too much for Terrence Steele. Because if you watch Terrence Steele play, Terrence Steele, his athletic ability is coming back. The knee looks healthier, so his movement is good. He's not a strong guy. He's never been a strong guy. We've asked him to be a strong guy, and he lifts weights, he tries, but he's not a powerful player. He's a really good foot athlete, and when he kicks to you, when he gets you wide, he can keep you wide. He can run you by. But if somebody takes him down inside or just runs over the top of him, he has problems setting his feet. He can get compressed. I might sit there and think that, man, I know that kid on the other side's a rookie, but he's got length, he's got athletic ability, and he's got more strength than the right tackle. So it might not be
we might see a plot twist.
Yeah. You might see Steele get attacked over there, and you might see them try and see if they could put something in the middle where they occupy Smith and Martin, and then they create an opportunity for Garrett one-on-one on BB, with the snap and then having to set and all that. The one thing that Guyton, that I've noticed in watching tape is that his hands tend to go outside the framework. His first move could be headbutt, and when you headbutt, that means you're leaning forward. So it's headbutt to stop you, hands up, and then it turns into reset your feet. And that's how right now he's kind of Verse from the Rams broke him down. Verse is a really good rusher, first-round rusher from Florida State. Really good at slapping hands, pulling hands, grabbing your corner and all that. That's what Guyton was just kind of a grab, try and reset, headbutt, get my feet right. Now it's not really pretty what he's doing. It's effective because he's such a good athlete.
Right.
But if he misses with his hands, Myles Garrett could be a nightmare to deal with, because you got to get your hands inside to be able to kind of try and control him a little bit, because the minute he gets to your body, you're done. He's going to push you, pull you. He's going to do. It's just, that's the problem. If Guyton can get into a rhythm in blocking, it's set, good, set, good, set, oh no, set, good. If he gets into a little bit of a rhythm and they help him and they chip and they bring a tight end, say they bring Hunter Lipke across the formation, wham on Myles Garrett, or they bring Schoonmaker across the formation, wham on him, or they wham on him with a crack block from the outside. I just don't see them letting Myles Garrett just have one-on-one day with everybody. I think you want him to be looking everywhere like, damn, they're blocking me from the outside. They're blocking me from the inside. They're attacking me head up. Make him have to adjust to think, I'm going to deal with all these different kinds of blocks. And he has. See, this isn't the first team that's ever had to do this to him. But you need to really be conscious of it. But I would keep an eye on him and Jim Schwartz of maybe thinking the better opportunity would be rushing against Steele, because I guarantee you Dallas is not going to have a game plan to help Steele very much because he's a veteran guy.
Well, maybe somebody should send him this episode.
I'm just saying. If I'm Jim Schwartz in the Browns, I know in my heart that they're going to try and help Guyton. I'm going to bet they're not going to try and help Steele as much. And maybe that's where I need to focus my plan of attack. We could keep talking about Guyton, and there are going to be some Guyton rushes. Mm-hmm. But that son of a gun is a hard guy to deal with. And I'm looking forward to seeing, I'm going to take some of their film on Tuesday and really chop that up and see how they played him against. Were they always lining him up against the best offensive tackles? Because we always get mad. We get mad at Dan Quinn. We used to get mad. I know maybe you didn't get mad. I got mad. Dan Quinn, why is he rushing? And Vach is still listening. And Vach, I'm sure he's in the chat. Vach would say the same thing. Why do you keep rushing him against Trent Williams of the 49ers? Why is he rushing? Why is Micah Parsons rushing against the best tackle? Why are we not over there against McKivitz or one of those other guys for the 49ers, that doesn't handle that as well? But we keep rushing him over, and you wonder, are they even, why? Why are you
where are the adjustments?
Yeah, why are you wasting reps against Trent Williams when they don't? Trent Williams doesn't need help blocking Micah Parsons. McKivitz does on the other side. He does. So, it's a strange thing these edge rushers go through. But Dallas, in this game, they can't. Well, Dallas, first off, they can't get behind in this game and turn this thing into a passing game.
We don't want that.
No, just if they could just, and we always say establish the run. How about just be effective running the ball? How about just being?
Do we have any idea of what our run game is even going to look like this season?
I think it's going to be, and I'd say this right now, I think the line with BB at center, and I don't think in college I gave Guyton enough credit as a run blocker, but he comes off the ball and gets into guys pretty effectively. So if in the way Dallas runs the ball, it's not all outside stuff, Right. Sometimes it's that, but they don't have a back that's like that. We've got old man one cut backs is what we've got, except right. If you don't put Dowdle in there's got a little, but Dallas's offense is really predicated on how well they block inside, and now when you got BB, Martin, and Smith, that's a pretty formidable group blocking inside.
Absolutely.
So secure down guy, push down guy into linebacker, make linebacker run the hump. Oh, here's Zeke, maybe a chance, I just hope they don't get into a situation where all of a sudden they're running the ball and they're blocking these plays and they're blocked like, damn, that play should have gone for 6-7 yards and it's going for 4. It's going for 3. Oh, damn, that play should have gone for 15 yards. They had everybody blocked. Why is it only going for 7? That's the combination of they need to find the right combination for these because of these offensive line. And Vach and I have talked about this a bunch on our show, is that the longer you have to block and hold blocks, the longer it is for you, the potential is for you to get called for holding. That was the difference between Zeke and Pollard. When you could see Zeke hit the hole, and you're like, God, they're holding their blocks forever. You could see Pollard hit the hole, and it was to and through the hole. And now, yes. Now it's a running game. So I don't want them to get into a situation where all of a sudden, it's they're holding blocks, and then they're getting flagged for holding because they're having to hold their blocks so long on the play.
Agreed. Now, one thing I will say about Guyton, just to speak on him a little bit more before we talk about the other side of the ball, in the game against the Chargers late in the game, it did kind of look like he was doing better with his hands, almost like somebody had coached him on it in the middle of the game. And he was like, oh, okay, let me focus on this for the rest of my time on the field. So I do kind of believe that he has the ability to adjust.
Sure does.
I almost
Absolutely.
feel like, and I hope I get the chance to ask him about this one day. I almost feel like, you know how we just talked about him being a good athlete?
Yeah.
There are components of that come from his time as a basketball player.
Sure.
And some of that he wants to hold on to, like his ability to recover so well is because of the footwork that he learned as a basketball player, right? But also, you know, for anyone who watches basketball, you know that usually whenever you're blocking someone or guarding someone, your hands are out wide. Right. So I almost wonder if he just has like a lot of just mechanical habits from his time as a basketball player that haven't completely been coached out of him. Right. And he's just having to adjust to like, okay, what do I keep? What do I let go of? And maybe that's making that process take a little bit of time. But he does seem like he's learning and he's catching on. Yeah. We just need more consistency. And hopefully he's had time to develop that.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I like what you're talking about with the basketball stuff. I know every day that, you know, whether it's Duke or or Mike Solari, somebody is telling him, all right, man, hands inside. Okay, when you kick, look at the target point. It's not outside, it's inside. Everything, grab the breastplate. And, you know, he's got some guys that will, and this kid is very coachable. This is not a guy that thinks he has all the answers type of a player. This is a very coachable player that wants to figure out how to do things the right way.
Agreed. Now, while we still have a little bit of time, let's go to the other side of the ball, because I feel like there's reason to kind of believe that the Cowboys have it easy, right? The Browns have dealt with a lot of injuries on their offensive line during the preseason. And you've got Deshaun Watson, who, because of those injuries to the offensive line, they didn't play him during the preseason. So he hasn't been in a real game in I want to say 10 months or something. Yeah, so on paper, there might be people thinking, great, this is a perfect situation to try out Mike Zimmer's defense with the Dallas Cowboys. So what do you think is going to be the true measure of success for the Cowboys? Do you think that they'll have a harder time than people anticipate looking at the injury history on paper? Or do you think that there's something that they're going to really need to focus on in order to ensure that they do their job?
Yeah, it's, and we look at the one thing that we kind of felt like going into this game, that when it all started was, okay, it's the Browns. And then we started thinking about, okay, Nick Chubb. We started thinking about running the football.
And Nick Chubb's going to be out.
And he's out. And now if you're a Cowboys fan, you caught a huge break there. And so to me, this is now with that, if this thing turns into a passing game, but the thing that we also understand is we all understand who Amari Cooper is. You know, we understand who Judy is out of the slot. Tillman, they've got Njoku at tight end. They've got some formidable weapons. And
Jerome Ford, who's going to be RB1, he's a dual threat himself.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned Ford. And so, but how well are they going to be able to handle – if they can make Watson have to make a bunch of throws in this game, this might be actually what they need to do. But can you cover up? Can you find a way with Diggs, and Carson and Lewis and the safeties? These linebackers do a really good job. We've seen with Kendricks, Leofau. I'm interested to see how really healthy Overshown is. I keep talking to Brad Sham, the radio voice of the team, and he was been pretty adamant last week when we were taught this time. He was like, this injury to Overshown, the hip pointer, is a pretty significant one. And so now, could that be you're down a linebacker? I think you need Overshown's ability to run, to tackle. Clark has come miles from where he once was. I mean, they relied on Clark to do a lot of things. And they didn't have linebackers that can help him. I mean, he's learned so much from these guys that he's playing with, even playing with Leofau, as far as reading and reacting and things. So how well can they control inside? Batonio, Posick, Teller. These guys are these are good inside players. When they're when you start talking about top 15 at position, all these guys are pretty solid guys. So can the defensive tackles? What's the plan for the defensive tackles? Are you going to be able to? Are you going to be able to have the rotation where you're still you're still able to get guys in there but not give up anything? First season game one is always and I mentioned, I use the word here again, crapshoot, because what happens is the conditioning of your team. You could talk about, a lot of these guys have not played. Now, the Cowboys had some really great work. I was there every day in Oxnard. Great work there in Oxnard. Great practices, couple great practices against the Rams. Get that kind of work, but you don't have your starters. You always worry about cramps and conditioning and these things happening where all of a sudden your guys are, popping into the halftime. They have to get IVs. They have to do this. So conditioning always plays a factor in these games and the ability to run really the whole game. And so, which team will better handle that in at least through week one. But it's going to come down to, like I said, I think there'll be Jess. I think there'll be a better run defensive team, or have the ability to be a better run defensive. Not just because of what's the defensive tackles. I just think the linebackers are better players. I think the Cowboys linebackers as a whole. I mentioned every one of those guys.
Absolutely
with Kendricks, these guys all run well and they all tackle well. They get to the hole, they play downhill, they can cover, they play outside, they play well in space. Dallas really struggled on the edge. We'll see what Sam Williams and Armstrong and those guys. That was a little bit of a struggle for them. They didn't play the edge particularly well, and all of a sudden you got a corner out there with Diggs. Diggs isn't always interested in coming up and stepping up. You couldn't get a safety down in the alley because you were playing single high stuff, and the guys you had down, maybe he got blocked. And you had, in the way that Quinn played his dime packages, Bell's playing linebacker. You have real linebackers playing. Your run defense will be better. Your run defense will be better just because you have better linebackers and you have safeties that are playing on the hash.
Yeah, better physically and mentally. One thing that I like about Eric Hendricks is just his awareness, his football IQ, and the way that he's talked about. I see that really benefiting everyone on the field. And one of the quotes from Mike McCarthy's most recent press conference really stood out. He said he's never seen the linebackers smile so much, which speaks to how much they're benefiting from both the size and experience of the linemen, of the defensive linemen. So I think between those two things, we are going to see a very different run defense for the Dallas Cowboys. It sounds like the guys in the building are already excited about it. So I hope the fans have a reason to be excited as well.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of size and experience, we've had some veterans brought onto the defensive side of the ball, more than I think a lot of people anticipated. And it made me think about, and real quick, if y'all are in the chat, if you have a question, go ahead and post it now. We might be able to get to one, maybe two, depending on the length of the answer. But it made me think about the end of last season and Micah Parsons' comments about wanting to be more of a leader and kind of hold people accountable. He used the word accountability a lot. Do you think that's something that he still could or should do, considering the people who have been brought onto the defense?
Yeah, I think Micah is going to be a guy that he realizes the eyes that are on him after the comments. The thing I had, me personally, is if I was working for the Cowboys in the personnel department, I would have had more of an issue of him not coming to OTAs than CeeDee Lamb holding out. And I say that in a way because we're learning a new defense. That
makes sense.
But the thing that Micah has done, he and Mike Zimmer, this defensive staff, I think Al Harris is a damn good coach as a secondary coach. I really do. I think he's helped all these guys. And so, but I think with Micah, there were times, and I was at every single practice they had, and there were times where Micah was like, the team was doing what they needed. Maybe there was a one-on-one drill or something like that, but he would take time. He'd go run laps, or not laps, but gassers. So you're sitting there thinking, okay, we don't need pass rush drill here today. We're just going to go run gassers. And you're like going, is that leadership, or is that just you thinking like, I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. But to me, I kind of felt like, and early in camp, and I didn't notice it much after, but wasn't standing. A lot of time I spent, because I was trying to figure out Mozzie Smith's game. And so I was behind the defense a lot, and I was watching, and Micah and Nealon were talking quite a bit during the pass rush drills. And then it came where Micah he would do one or two pass rush drills, and then he'd go away. He would go run, but he wouldn't be a part or stay around and watch what Nealon and Wheat and the other guys were trying to do. Muhammad, he was not there. He would go just run gassers. And I didn't know if that was, I don't know if that's leadership. I would like to believe that Micah Parsons, if Nealon was rushing the passer every single time and he got 1,000,000 reps, that maybe he would be over there like, that was a good rep. Okay, use your hands this way. Slap the hands this way. Okay, grab him. Grab that corner. If you could grab the corner and then bend. Now dip. There's things you could stand over there and do. Hell, you could even work with Golston. Golston's moving from tackle to end. He's not a great pass rusher, but Tank was over there talking to those guys. That's just the stuff that I notice. I'm not trying to be, and it sounds like, and I know everybody out there is watching our program today, Broaddus, you're a conspiracy guy. I'm not. I'm just telling you what I saw. If I was on the field as a scout and you're talking to me about leadership and stuff, okay, go be leader guy. Go tell Nealon how to rush the passer. Go coach him up. And there were a couple times where they were doing things early where he was, and then towards the middle and the end of camp, I didn't notice it a whole lot. But I'm not going to sit here. I shouldn't act like I saw every single rep they did, but I saw a lot of them. And then I would see Micah Parsons just kind of go away and go do his own thing. But that's Micah Parsons,
right?
Micah Parsons. That right there kind of tells you what he does during practice. He wants to practice, but when it comes to the mundane, I guess is the word, drills and things.
It sounds like there's some things that he feels like he needs to do for his own benefit, for his own conditioning. And I probably should say we have no idea, what these conversations are like in these meetings.
I'm admitting that, but I do watch when they're doing drills, what he goes and does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I notice it. It is noticeable that he goes and runs gassers when everybody else is doing one-on-one pass rush drills. Not to say he's not in the team period, not trying to coach and lead and all that. I'm just saying that one-on-one work that you might see, I'm just pointing out, he's a different cat. He does what he wants to do. That's where that is going.
Well, one thing I will say is that, they said that Deshaun Watson didn't need the preseason experience. He'll be fine. And I think Micah Parsons is going to put that to the test on Sunday, especially against this banged up offensive line.
He will be ready to play. There's no question that Micah Parsons will be ready to play. And what Micah Parsons needs to do is, though, and maybe the extra conditioning and stuff will help him in December, because there have been, we're very, very critical of, and, we talked about Dak Prescott earlier, but there's a reason why they don't win these playoff games, because their best players don't always play great in the playoffs. Quarterback, the edge, receivers getting open, defensive backs. They don't always, when you win playoff games, your best players are playing their best. There's some questions about some of the Cowboys, and you can say, well, damn, Bryant's 20-something years of not playing great. Go back and watch. Go back and watch playoff games, and you tell me if they're.
The playoffs are a single elimination tournament, basically. So, I mean, all it takes is it doesn't even have to be a whole game of people not playing great. It could be a couple of plays, a couple of series, and that can literally make all the difference.
Dak outplayed Tom Brady. Great player outplayed great player there. See, that's what happens. You win playoff games. For example, the Dallas defense played great against San Francisco, played like trash against Green Bay. Their best players, go look at the stats. It's very, very rare that in some of these playoff losses that your best players played their absolute best game at that time. That's if you want to answer for why they don't have playoff success, yeah, sure, go blame the quarterback. Sure, he doesn't deserve all the blame. He stands up there and takes the arrows, when he shouldn't have to. Everybody else should have the coaches, front office, everybody involved. But when they get in playoff games, you watch that Tampa game, their best players played very well in that game. But the following week or the next week after, or last year when you're the second overall seed, their best players didn't play well in that game, and that causes you to lose games, and that's Micah Parsons included.
Well, that's something else we're going to put a pin in for next week. I'm going to ask you one question from the chat, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay.
Toxic Splenda Poppy Vela says, if Tyler Guyton beats Garrett week 1, will his ceiling be higher than Tyrone Smith?
You know what? It'd be a great start, but Tyron Smith's a Hall of Fame, Fame offensive tackle, and there's been a lot of battles where Tyron Smith was battling guys like that and winning them. So, in our society of one game satisfaction, that's the way you want to feel. Go for it. But man, you're talking 14 years of Tyron Smith of just. And the only thing, like I said, Tyron Smith fighting through all the injury he did. But man, when they start to talk about all-time offensive tackles in Dallas Cowboys history, and they've got some. He's right up there at the top of the list. So I wouldn't say one game. I would just say, 1 week, he's blocking Myles Garrett, and the next week he can't block me for the Saints. So you know what I'm saying? You got to take it. Hopefully he will stay healthy, and he'll be able to put good years upon good years. There was things where I think if you ask me at a camp who the player I thought the best player was in training camp for the camp that I saw, all those practices, Tyler Smith. And there's a lot of people that didn't think Tyler Smith was that was a terrible pick. Tyler Smith will be one of the best guards in this league in the next 2 years, I believe. He's going to start to get the recognition for how good he really plays. And when you start to talk about down after down after down, practice after practice after practice, Tyler Smith is becoming that guy. He really is.
Yeah, he's definitely one to watch, somebody who gets overlooked a little bit. It's almost like his high performance has become so status quo that people just don't talk about it anymore. They just expect it. But he really is fun to watch, and he's so good at what he does. When it comes to Tyler Guyton, though, I agree. I think one game, that's a lot to determine from one game. I think we'll know something. If we see that Myles Garrett-Tyler Guyton matchup, I think it will tell us something, but I don't think it'll let us know if he'll be a Hall of Famer with a higher ceiling.
Yeah, there will be other matchups that he has during the year, and if all of a sudden he starts stacking those games, and then all of a sudden you start to hear Myles Garrett and guys like that around the league, and they say, who's the best tackle? Oh, that kid in Dallas is pretty damn good for a rookie. If you start to hear that buzz, then my hope is, this is just my hope that Guyton plays as well as Tyler Smith played that 1 year at left tackle for when Tyron Smith got hurt. Because that right there, that kid, it's like, damn. Please just let Tyler Guyton play to that level, that just like that Tyler Smith played, and I'll feel really, really good about that kid going forward.
As a Tyler Guyton fangirl, I would love that as well. Well, thank you so much for chiming in on all these topics and giving us your wonderful insight on the matchup next Sunday. I think that, well, we don't have anything planned for everybody in the chat, but Brian will be back. I'll be back. But for now, this has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm Jazz Monet here with Bryan Broaddus, and we're out.